How's it going, everyone? John here, the host of Spear Talk. Here to tell you to check out the SpearTalkPodcastStore.com. That is SpearTalkPodcast.com to check out all the Spear Talk merchandise. We have coffee mugs, we have t-shirts, we have hoodies, we have sweatpants, we have guitar picks, we have stickers, we have pins. We have it all. You name it, we got it. You can also join the Spear Talk Book Club, which sold out in 2024, and we are close to selling out 2025. So be sure to check out SpearTalkPodcast.com for all your Spear Talk podcast merchandise. Thank you all. How's it going, everyone? John here, the host of Spear Talk, and today get to welcome again for the second time on Spear Talk my good friend, author, and host of Tale of Two Scribes, Mr. Eric P. Bishop. Eric, great to have you on here again.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, I think second time on Spear Talk, and I was actually thinking about this morning, like how many, because I filmed some episodes for A Tale of Two Scribes that haven't aired yet. So I don't know, 65 maybe?
Have you found your joy, kind of talk me through in terms of the podcast, have you found like it's still enjoyable, it's still fun? Like what are some of the things you've kind of noticed that you didn't like before that you like now versus
hmm
stuff that's been happening where you're kind of like, ugh.
Good question. So yes, it's still fun, still enjoying it. It's been hard the last couple months as I'm on self-imposed deadline for Supreme Justice to kind of get all the pieces together. So there's been a few times it's felt a little bit like work, which I do a lot of work besides that, so I don't like that. But where it's kicked in, where it really turned into work, and you know it offline we talked about, is I had a couple people not show. And frankly, that pisses me off. And because you prep it up,
Yeah.
I spend probably about 30, 40 minutes kind of because some of these people I do not know, never read their books, never, but I know who they are and I know the concepts. Okay, I'll read their background and kind of figure out who they are, what did they write about. And I have it all, like I literally have one from the last interview sitting right next to me here. I never took it down. So I'll kind of like be ready. I'll sit in there and then, I'll start recording at 6:30 or 7 on a Monday night and 6:30 hits and it's 6:35 and I'm like, the last person that did it, I reached out. They didn't message me back. And so, like 20 minutes later, I just shut it down and emailed their publicist and emailed them. And they were really cool about it. It was just an issue with their scheduling. They put the wrong date on. But yeah, it's like, dude, I just spent at least an hour of my life between waiting and prepping where, man, I got a lot of crap I can work on for my own book. So those ones they only have happened a couple times, but when that's happened, I'm kind of like, not cool.
Well, it's one of those things too, especially the Reddit community where uh, outreach and PR is so tough to come by unless you're a Stephen King or a Jack Carr
Right.
type person, right? And so they're going to be on the mainstream podcasts that go out to a much broader audience. But when
Mhm.
someone puts the time in and effort to organize a sit down and a talk, and the fact that they forgot or there was a mix up, it's like it is super. I mean, it's happened to me a couple times where their PR person was kind of a hassle. And then you talk to the guest and they're embarrassed for them
Yeah,
because they're like, man, I'm so sorry you went through all these hurdles. Next time, just message me direct. Which
right.
we always try to do the right thing, right? But there's this one time where someone jumped on and they were like hot, heated. They've been doing press all week and they were
Mhm.
super bummed out. Like, man, the guy's like, I'm just frustrated. I don't feel like doing this. And I go, well, it's not bothering me any. Like, you don't have to be on my show. I could care less.
Right.
And then I'm thinking, oh, whatever. I got a free Friday night now. And then he took a deep breath and was like, man, I'm so sorry. Like, I followed you for a while. Like, I should have said that. I'm just frustrated. And so our talk was actually amazing.
Yeah.
And so I get like the how people feel and stuff like that. Like we don't know what people are going through, but
Correct.
they also understand they still have to go through and promote their work and stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the things you and I always talk about is these authors, and obviously we're going to talk about your work and stuff in the upcoming book. But when it comes to people that put this hard-earned energy, time, resources into their work, that don't put the effort into promoting it. Because I mean, the writing part is obviously difficult, but
hmm
once that's done, the real tough part is selling your book to people that have never heard you before. Maybe read your first book and it's been 6 years since your last book. Like, why do I have to reinvest myself if you really haven't been keeping me up to date on new writings, new books? So it's such a fascinating discussion to have.
It is. I'd say that, I'd argue the point that I think the marketing side of it's harder than the writing, probably for almost every writer. Not that writing's easy. Once you've written, I mean, I'm at like, so this is fifth published book. I have three completely finished unpublished ones. I have three or four in work. Some of them are like 30,000 words, so a third of the book. I have other stuff that I can't talk about that's been worked on. So I'm a million plus words into this. Not at all like, hey, I got it figured out and I'm a great writer now, but I feel comfortable. If I need to sit down and write, I can write. I've got so many ideas in my head. That's not trying to get that book out to market, trying to get that like what's working for an ad. I mean, I've spent probably 10 hours this week literally just creating ads, videos, things to use for promotion for the book being out that I don't know, are they going to hit? Are people going to appreciate them? I don't know because I'm a writer, but I don't want to go spend $1,000 on a marketing firm because I know people that have done that
Oh,
and they've sold 10 books. I
yeah,
mean, you know how many books you have to sell to recoup $1,000 in ad spend? It ain't $4 or $5. It's a lot of books. So I do a lot of that myself just because I have to. Economics makes me do it. But it's time that am I investing in something good and is it keeping me from writing? Which the answer to that one is yes.
right. Yeah, it's such a because you do a lot of the stuff I don't really haven't looked at yet, like the ads or like using social media in that
Yeah.
space. It seems like such a tedious amount of work, and so I get why authors or creatives would be dejected or feel like
Yeah.
it's not going anywhere. But like I look at some of the authors that we've had so many of on our pod, especially you on your podcast, where they're the incredible writers, yet their social media is every 2 weeks a post of their book, and I'm just
Mhm.
like organically, I don't know if that's working for you.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing too is what you find with some authors is they only post a month or two before their book comes out and that month after their book comes out, and then they pretty much fall off the spectrum. You know, they're gone. They're not on the plane anymore that you see them. And if you have a publisher behind you that's doing marketing, which is not
Sure.
super common nowadays, you can get away with that. But even that, I think the authors that are consistent and you walk this fine line, and I know I walk it too. I'm sure people follow my social media and like, what the hell is Bishop posting about the Body Man again? It's been out for 4 years. I don't know if someone, especially on Tuesdays, I always try to do a generic, not generic, but a post that's getting other authors to share their works, and I will share their works as well. I'm not just saying buy mine. I'm like, hey, buy these other authors' books. But I think you have to keep doing that and be consistent with it just to get your word out there, your name out there to a new audience. And
Right.
also then that's all always blended in with, and I learned this years ago from talking to someone who's a number one New York Times bestseller is, hey man, just be yourself. So I post up, I'm pretty common to post stuff about concerts I've gone to. And, you've opened up doors for me to see stuff that most people don't get to see. So I've been delicate when I share that, but I definitely share those experiences where I've been backstage or done something cool. And then, grilling and outdoor stuff because I want people to, it's not just a shill to say buy my books. I do want people to know who I am. And I think if they know who I am and they're interested, and they do pick up a book, they'll maybe connect the dots of, that's why this character is interested in this. Because at the end of the day, I do put a lot of personal stuff in all the books.
Well, it also makes you relatable as opposed to just a mystery person behind a pen and paper, where
Right.
you are now just a regular dude that writes really great thriller books. And so maybe that resonates with someone that's watching you, or
Sure.
because I think your community itself, and they've kind of come over to my side a little bit with my thing, where it's like the author community is super supportive of each other.
Yeah.
And then like I just did Jeff Circle's Dossier podcast,
Okay.
and a bunch of people like that, where I'm like, and you just had Richard Maverick on your show,
Hmm.
and so it's stuff like that where it's like that community is very supportive of each other, and that's cool to see.
Yeah.
It's just disheartening. I always harp on it because I see their stuff and I'm like, God, man, if I had your talent to write your thriller books, I would like not you. I'm saying these other authors where
Hmm.
some of these people I read their stuff. I'm like, man, if I was the one that wrote this, book would be number one, just because I have the drive to want to
Yeah.
push it.
You're a different beast though, John. You're a combination of a lot of really cool things, and then there's that crazy side of you.
Yeah,
So,
fully.
but
It's
it's
always there.
I know it's always it's probably the loudest. It might be small, but it's the loudest one because it's there. But that's not common in the writer circle. Like I always joke about it, but it's true. Probably the average writer you talk about is super timid. If they could go have a cabin up in Montana and take on Theodore Kaczynski's role and just write stuff, and then some of them would bomb people, that would be their thing. They don't want to do social media. They don't want to post. They don't
Yeah.
want to go on podcasts. That to them is like for me and you, we're comfortable doing it. I think I'm natural at it in a
Right, right,
non-egotistical way. I'm comfortable talking to a screen and I enjoy it. Lots of authors, like it's almost like death by a thousand cuts for them to have to get out there and then talk about their book is hard. And that is a difficult thing. I'm more apt to talk about lots of things, but like I do not get super excited to say, please buy my book because it's in a way that's disgusting. But I can't sell any books if I just go, hey, I wrote a book. Let's talk about Yosemite. Let's talk about the trip to Yellowstone. I'm going, like,
right,
you have to talk about your book and make people excited about it. And for me, I do enjoy that part because those stories are things that live in my head for so long that once I get the opportunity to kind of say, hey, guess what's coming out? I get excited. It's fun.
right. You mentioned Body Man being out for the last 4 or 5 years. Have you noticed a correlation as you've released new books in that series with certain characters that there's a connection to? Well, I can't read this book until I buy the Body Man, and then they end up buying all your books. Have you able to kind of like trace people's journeys through your world you've created?
I've definitely seen an uptick where if people find, I will say the majority of people seem to find the Body Man, then they buy the other ones. Yes. But I have gotten people say, hey, I got Breach of Trust and I really enjoyed it. And I've had people message me and stuff and say, I went back and bought the Body Man. When does the next one come out? Yes, definitely. And the other thing that's been really beneficial for me this last year, and David Darling gets the credit for this, is he talked me into doing Kindle Unlimited about a year and a half ago, I guess. I was kind of like hesitant to do it because I was looking at the numbers and going, well, if someone buys an ebook and I make $4, why would I put it on Kindle Unlimited and get a buck 50 or a buck 60 if they read the book? And he's like, you got to understand, that's two audiences. If someone pays for Kindle Unlimited, there's a good chance that's at least the majority of their reading. They're not probably out there buying ebooks as often versus people that have ebooks and don't have Kindle Unlimited, you're not losing much.
Right.
So, I mean, as we're recording this, I'm at like 2 million page reads for a year and a half. And to let your audience know what that means is you can basically take the amount of pages in the books, and I can actually drill it down exactly to how many pages for every book in Kindle. Their reports are actually really good. So if you kind of piece it all together, I've had somewhere in the neighborhood, I think around 4,500 books read in a year and a half. To some people, those are massive numbers. To other, bigger name authors, that's a joke. That might be what they sell there, in a day when it first day it comes out or pre-orders.
Yeah, a book that came
But
out 30 years ago. Yeah.
yeah, but for an indie author, I mean, it's encouraging because it's like, okay, those are possibly 4,500 books read that would have maybe never been read if I wasn't part of Kindle Unlimited. So those kind of ventures. So to answer to finish through that question, typically with Kindle Unlimited, if someone reads that first book, like they read The Body Man, there's a good chance they went and then read Breach of Trust, and there's a good chance they've queued up Supreme Justice for when it comes out, when it came out July 15th.
Right. Have you, when it comes to the marketing, to a digital version or a physical, does it change for you? And I guess the second part to that question is, how do you, like, I've always bought a book. Like, I love the feel of the book. But when my
Me
author
too.
friends release a book, I buy the digital because it counts as a sale, and I buy
Yeah.
the hardcover paperback because it's another sale. And
Hmm.
so it's tough to like show or tell people like, hey, every time you buy this book, it's a sale.
Right.
And so, sometimes people feel like they don't want to buy the digital because they're waiting for the paperback, which
Hmm.
I get it. But I'm also
Hmm.
like, you do realize I don't have Kindle. I've never read a Kindle, but I still buy the books. So it's
There's
like
a
it's one
lot
of the,
lot on your queue to download, probably
oh
from
God, there
Kindle.
I have hundreds of books on there. But I like for me, it's like I care about I want to come on. I want to help the author because it's
Yeah.
again sales are and the algorithm and those bestseller lists and stuff on Amazon. Like it means something to these creatives,
Right.
and so that's kind of what I want to do.
Ratings and reviews, another thing. People that go out, I know we need to get more people for you to leave a rating and review for your poetry book. Um,
I always feel like I hate so every
it's
week
all
or
right.
so I'll uh I'll make a post saying, hey, if you read the book, please leave a review, and one or two people will do it. But
Right.
it's like it's one of those things where it's like we live in a society today where people think they don't have 2 to 3 minutes to even leave a review, yet they'll spend 4 hours on there looking for a 80,
Reels.
80s costume or looking for some bullshit thing they don't need. So it's such a It's
I
such a
actually, I tell you this, I actually a couple of weeks ago, and I've done it previous times, and this time I'm sticking with it, is I dumped TikTok. Now I still have an account. It's still back. If I go to the Apple store, I could open it, but I don't have an icon or any way to get to it easy because I found myself probably in May, April, May, literally I was keeping the phone away from my bed for a while, and I
yes,
stopped doing that
smart.
for some dumb reason. I kind of started plugging in back near my head, near my dresser next to the bed. And I would literally, not exaggerate, I'd sit there for like 30 minutes every night and just scroll, 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 scroll. And I finally hit
Yeah.
that spot of just like, I gotta stop doing this crap. Well, what's the easiest way to do it? Drop the app and go back to sticking the phone literally 10 feet away from my bed. And I'm not, so I've got books on my bookstand now, or my nightstand. So literally every night I'll grab a book, even if I just read 2 pages and fall asleep. Let me get back in the habit of reading before which I did for years. Because yeah, but yeah, does everybody have you don't even the thing with Amazon with ratings and reviews, we always say ratings and reviews. Very few people will take the time to leave a review, but if you go in and just give it a 5-star rating or a 4-star rating or 1 star, I mean, preferably not one, but
Right.
that literally takes 2 seconds, 3 seconds.
Correct.
That's all you have to do. Go to your previous purchases, and actually, Amazon pulls it up on the screen, and it says you can just go through and hit the stars on the way down. So if you bought 20 things from Amazon this month, you don't have to leave a review. You just go through and hit 5 stars, 5 stars, 3 stars, whatever. You just go through.
Right.
That helps. So the Body Man last time I looked, I think was at 815 ratings. Again, for an indie press, for a self-published, big number. For, the New York Times bestsellers, laughable number. But I'm proud of that. That's a minimum of 800 and something people that have taken the time to give me a star, and it sold a lot more than that anyways. And that's the other thing too, is it's not a 1-to-1 ratio, so you don't get one person. The numbers are kind of all over there of how many people actually go back and leave them. I think I get better stats than others, but it's something to get those ratings, and then it pushes you in the algorithm. It's a beast. It feeds it. Your book will be recommended more because you've had 815 ratings versus if I had 8 ratings.
Right. It's when you mentioned indie writer, it's like when you look at those men and women, like 9 to 5 jobs, family issues they got to deal with, all
Yeah.
this other stuff creating. And you look at like the top writers, sure they have their family stuff they deal with, but their sole job is to write. And that's why I love the indie writers, Nick Horvath, Sledgeverse Labyrinth,
Yeah.
Steve Stratton, Ava Adair, I can't even think about the 100 other people, where they do all this work and on top of everything they do, their full-time jobs, military, law enforcement, all that stuff they do,
Hmm.
and here they are still creating. It's so I think I wish all the success to any indie author that puts himself out there
Yeah.
because they're doing this for the love of the game. And obviously, if it hits, right? And you're super
Right.
excited, but they're still producing this work when it's not even their main job. I mean, someone
Right.
like you is a perfect example where you still have to do a full-time job.
Full-time job. I don't really write when I have my kids,
Right.
so most of my writing and my stuff is done. That's changed over the years because my son Bruce is technically is out of the house, not really, but he'll off to college pretty soon. So, and he's rarely around nowadays. I text him and I'm like, "You're gonna be here for dinner? Are you gonna be here tonight?" It wasn't, it's just that's happens when you're 18 and a half, and I did the same thing when I was his age. So my daughter's stuck with me for another 4 years, but yeah, so she'll might be watching something some night or doing her thing or talking to friends, and so I can sneak in an hour, go in my room and work on something. But yeah, most of my writing stuff is done on non-kid weekends and non-working hours, obviously. So you have to be very disciplined and you have to be very precise on what you're planning to do. You don't have the freedom of saying, but I don't even think big authors do either. If you treat the writing with the respect and dignity it deserves, you
Yeah.
have to kind of be structured. Because I think most people, if they're given to their own inner slothfulness and they just go, I'll just write when I get up and get going and all that, you're going to find an excuse not to write. So you have to take I interviewed someone the other day for the podcast, and this person gets up at 4 a.m. They have little kids. They get up at 4 a.m. to write before work. So they're
Damn.
like from 4 to 7, because I was telling them my agenda or my time frame for years when I was married and had the kids were little is I wrote at 10 o'clock till whenever, till later, till midnight or 1. and they have the opposite. They do the 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. But that's it, unless you want to sacrifice time with your kids or your wife or your spouse or friends or whatever, you got to carve time out, which means you typically have to give something up. Sleep, television, sport, whatever it might be, but you've got to give something up because yeah, you don't have the luxury of sitting down at 8 a.m. and saying, "Okay, this is my job. Let's start writing a
Right.
book." That doesn't happen. That's and I've talked about it in my podcast. You and I think I've talked about it offline. Less, I think it's 1.8% technically is the term, but less than 2% of people who write in the United States make $100,000 or more. And keep in mind with that stat, to have that stat created is you have someone like James Patterson that makes $50 million a year. He's in that number too.
Yeah.
So it shows how few people, and I know people can live life less than 100,000. I get that. But nowadays, you're not doing that if you live in San Francisco or New York or Washington. I mean, that's low
Yeah.
end. That's how hard it is. So, I was talking, and I'll be open with it. Kyle Mills, I interviewed him. He'll be on Tale of Two Scribes later in July. Um, his analogy to it, which I thought was pretty good, is there's a good probability that the UPS driver delivering a boxes to the New York Times bestseller is making just as much money as that New York Times bestseller. That's a high probability. Bonkers when you hear the
Right.
stats. So you better have a spouse, you better have a military pension, you better, like, a lot of them do retire. You're retired, you've got your 401k, you've got your savings. Hey, now I can write full time. That's more the reality than being 30 years old and saying, "Hey, I'm going to Fiji to." I always joke about that for my own. I'm going to be in Fiji surrounded by pretty women and write. Good luck. You're probably going to be a 75-year-old shriveled up dude doing that if
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
happens.
Hey, it works for Al Pacino. Uh, I wonder,
Hoorah,
yeah,
hoorah.
when it comes to as we transition to extreme justice, when you get
Yep.
ideas, whether you're hiking or cooking or hanging with your friends or your kids, is your you have a wild idea? Like I assume you're not going. At least I don't go to my laptop and type out what I'm going to write. I'll either take notes on my phone or like a voice record a line or a phrase. Okay, so that's what you do too.
I I literally add to my voice notes, my iPhone notes every day. I don't, maybe there's a day I don't add something, but yeah, I've got one, and shoot, I've got one for the next book in the series, which anyone that gets through Supreme Justice, you need to be reading it now. So this isn't going to blow the world, but it's called Downfall. So I've got notes for Downfall, which I'm working on now. I've got notes for the next Omega Group book, which I'm working on now, and even subsequent future books. Yeah, if something pops in my head, because I know I might remember some of it. But I'll forget like the real good reason that got me excited, whether I was in the shower, taking a hike or whatever. Because if I'm in the shower, I'll grab the phone as soon as I get out and I try to get it fresh in my head. Even if 6 months later I read it back and I go, what the hell does that even say? What
Yeah.
does that even say? Because I won't know maybe, but I still try.
I was doing a advance call for an upcoming Shinedown show, and we started talking about stuff. Like they did the work part, and we were just talking about different things that happened. And I got off the call, and I immediately had to go into my notes on my phone and remember stuff I'd said or what we talked about because the project we're working on, uh, it'd be like the perfect dialogue where our character could have with someone that works at a venue
Hmm.
in a way so it's like stuff like that happens all the time, especially when I'm working, where I'm like, oh fuck, our guy could do this, or
Right.
uh, so yeah, the note taking for me, I think, is this lifesaver. And like, I actually have a physical notebook as well, which
Hmm.
helps me with the poetry, just because it seems more fitting, right? Like you
Yeah.
just go in there and doodle. Uh, but yeah, I love it. Have you ever felt like as you get further in these series, do you ever go back and Monday quarterback past decisions that have led you to where you are now? It kind of been like, fuck, if I did this a little bit differently, maybe I could have opened this next book up a little bit bigger. Or do you ever have that type of like,
I can't. And the reason I can't, probably because of what I've been through the past 5 years. If I go back and think about my previous decisions, I'd probably go to the gun cabinet next and be like, which caliber is the biggest one to take out the biggest chunk of my head? So
right?
that's a joke, folks. I would never
Yeah,
consider that, and don't ever do that. But
yeah.
no, I don't. I really, and I've changed my perspective on life since going through the divorce and the thing, not seeing your kids that much. And I think pre all that, pre when I was working on originally on the bottom man, I was in this mindset of, man, the glass is half empty. Um, I need to fill up that glass. It's half empty. It's half empty. And I really have, and it was an effort. It was not a automatic, it happened like that, but it was a conscious effort to say, you know what, the glass really is half full. And that carried over to then I'm not going to go back and look at decisions I made in relationships or the way I raised my kids or the book I wrote 2014 and go back and kind of doubt my process at the time. I what I do look back on is sometimes is how can I make it better going forward. But yeah, I don't pull up the old books because I did that a couple years ago. I pulled out some of my old like poetry. I think Eric Bass and I were talking about poetry a couple years ago when I was at his house, and had started writing again, writing poetry, and I made the mistake of going back and reading poetry I had written back in geez, 2000, no, 1998, 1997, back in the, the dinosaur days for all those kids that are watching this. Um, and it was so terrible. It was so crappy. I was so like, man, you sucked back then. But then I got that mindset flipped immediately of like, no, dude, that's what got you on this path. Is writing something bad got you to the point where you can write something good. So when I do look back on stuff like that, I don't look back on it and go, man, if I made that decision different, it might have changed this. Um, I haven't let myself do that. And the body man stuff is pretty fluid. I don't have a master plan of, I know by book 8, the body man is going to be doing this, and oh, it's already changed. Nick's out of the picture now, and maybe Sam's the new body man or any of that. I don't have that, and I don't want to have that. I know a book or two out, kind of what I want to do, but I'm open to changing that if circumstances happen during that current book I'm writing, and because I do a lot of Pantser stuff still, where I'm kind of like, hey, I didn't know at the end of Supreme Justice, I didn't know how I was going to wrap things up until honestly I went to Ireland last year. You went to the UK and Ireland. I didn't really know how I was going to do that, and while I was there, I was kind of like, this would be the way to finish things off. And I wrote the last chapter of Supreme Justice on a bus, on the paddy wagon, on the way back from Blarney Castle, and I finished it on the flight over to the transatlantic, back to the United States. I hadn't written some chapters before that, but I knew at that point this is the endings to Supreme Justice. I have to write it while it's fresh in my mind. And my first reader was my mom, who was sitting next to me on the plane. I was like, "Hey, what do you think?" And I just sat there for about 5 minutes, like waiting for her to be like, "Oh, you're so dumb. This is so terrible." Which she would never do, even if she thought that.
Right.
But she was just like, "I love it. You nailed it." I'm like, "Okay, deal." I got mom's seal of approval, so screw everybody else's. So
I love it. I love the fact that when you travel and stuff, you're always looking for intimate moments to put in your books, whether it's at a cafe or a pub and stuff like that. I think it allows the author, the writer, to connect with a certain character that obviously they've created,
yeah,
but it grounds it in a way that's all relatable to us. Even if the book is some batshit crazy conspiracy theory or
right.
end of the world pandemic or zombie up, whatever it is, you can still put those human moments in there that you've experienced yourself that I
Yep.
think resonates with the people that are reading your books.
100%. I'll tell you real quick. I don't know where I'm gonna actually. I think I know where I'm using this in the next book. I wrote it a couple years ago now. It was before the show in Cardiff, Wales, when I was coming over to see you guys. And obviously, everyone's getting ready for the show. So the day of the show, I don't really see anybody till a couple hours before over at the venue. So I ended up going out with your friend Danny, who's from Germany. And Danny and I went to a cafe, and it was just a cool little cafe right on the main, I can't even think what the name boulevard there is in Cardiff. And it was just one of those fun experiences. And when I think it was on the train to London the next day, I wrote the two of us in this cafe, but different characters, obviously. But kind of like what was going on. There was a funny store name across the way. And I just put it in my head of going, okay, I'm going to use this for a future book. So I wrote that chapter, dumped it in a folder. And at some point, yeah, there'll be a chapter that takes place in Cardiff, Wales, with these characters possibly in Downfall. And that really happened. In some form. 80% of it really happened right there, which
Yeah.
And that's also to me, that's a cool little way of maybe when I'm 80 and I'm reading my books and I can't write anymore because my brain's kind of just left me, unfortunately. Maybe read it and maybe I'll be like, wait, this sounds so familiar. I felt like I've done this. And it's like, I'll have to put a little note in the book that says, yeah, dummy, you did do this one. You lived this one. Like, oh, wow, cool.
Well, it's also a nice write-off too for the yeah.
Why do you think I'm going to Australia and New Zealand next year, man? Future Body Man books, guess what? Spoiler alert, we will have some scenes over there.
What to kind of segue to Supreme Justice, are you like you always document your editing process. You talked about your established deadlines for stuff.
Yeah.
When you put a date out there, and I've done this before as well. I just did it again for my second poetry book, where I like the pressure it puts on yourself.
hmm
But you ever feel like if you're ever been experience where you're going through the edits, you're like, man, like this sucks, or this is I need, or are you able to kind of like deal with that and know that either way this has to be done at your deadline? Do you ever have battle yourself with putting dates on stuff for yourself?
Um, Not yet. I have been a little frustrated with myself this past year or so because I've decided to do 2 books a year, which for some people is totally doable. For me, it's not been totally doable.
You're a psychopath.
Well, yes. I mean, I'm friends with you, so obviously, come on, they always attract, right? Or is the opposites? I don't know. I don't think so, actually. Yeah, no, that's been a little hard because those deadlines I've had to stick to, but they do keep me accountable. So I'm an inner slacker. I think most guys would have to admit they're an inner slacker. You might not be. You're pretty driven, but I'm sure you slack off on some stuff. I will let my inner slacker take over unless I set aggressive deadlines for stuff. So I might get frustrated with myself that I've set a deadline, but the more alpha side of my brain kicks in and says, well, dumbass, guess what? You have to get it done by
Yeah.
this Friday because the editor's getting it on Saturday, and the editor has something 2 weeks later. Like my editor's in Greece, and he does author retreats, which I hope to go to one in the next year or two. And so this last book with Supreme Justice, I had to have it to him by a certain date because he only had 2 weeks to do the edit before he was going off on one of his writers' retreats, and then he wouldn't be available for another month or so. Well, that was then going to push me in too close to get it out for July. So it was actually a good thing because it kept me. So I went through the book. Those last 2, 3 times I read the book, I probably did it in 10 to 15 days, which is on top of a job, on top of kids.
Yeah, of
So
course.
every night I was going through 50, 150 pages or whatever, and I just kept constantly going through it. So it kept me on task, which was a good thing.
It's you mentioned like the slacking. For me it's weird because I we all have an ego. We all have a amount of confidence, right? Or we should in a healthy dosage. And for me it's like when I slack off on stuff, it's like there'll be some days where I'm like, I don't need to do anything today because I know my ego will not allow me to fail.
Right.
And so, but it's a fine line because I think sometimes that can be detrimental to the creative process if you're not
Yeah.
giving yourself. Because I think it was you that said just write something every day, whether it's write the word nothing or write
Mhm.
200, 2,000 words. And so
Yep.
it's one of those things where like some days I wake up and like, oh, I'll write something stupid or I'll just write to write. And then some days I'll be like, I don't want you waste the time writing nothing I'm going to use. And
Sure.
so it's a fine line of like whatever. But as you've continued writing, have you realized your confidence levels have skyrocketed? Where, yeah, you're an indie writer, but your output of work rivals best New York Times bestselling authors. Your work ethic and drive rivals world famous authors. So it's like, at what point do you feel like, yeah, I'm an indie author, but you know what? I am writing just as well as anyone that's not an indie author. So it's like it's kind of a
Mm.
it's always a tough act for me where it's like especially in the poetry space where some incredibly well established poets that I love, Dan Whitlam, J.M. Strong, Raw Writings, people I follow,
Mhm.
where yeah they're prolific and stuff like that, but and their words are effective. But I'm also like just because they have a million followers or a million people buy their books should not take away from the fact that I'm just as good a writer as they are.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
while their words affect me in a certain way, I know my words affect people in a certain way. And it's like there's a power to that where I think we get so caught up in the fact that sure, it would be awesome if every author I knew became a New York Times bestselling author, but that isn't what's going to make them a prolific writer. I don't, maybe I'm thinking that for me, I'm just like, I love the idea of being number one on lists and stuff, and we both have, but I'm also like, that doesn't define me. Our
No,
definition is how our work like affects people in a positive light.
exactly. So to answer your question, yeah, my confidence has grown. I still have that uh, inner you're a phony. That does, and I think that's just lack of confidence from when I was younger. Maybe kicks in sometimes. I push it down pretty quick, and if I feel like I'm a phony, I will go to some of the reviews that people have written and sent me in, and I'm like, okay, I don't know this person from Adam. Like I know the person's name, first name and last name because it's on their email or whatever, but I have no. There's no. This isn't my mom. This isn't my best friend saying, this isn't John saying, good job, because I don't want you to quit the podcast. Hey, you're a great writer. Keep it going. This is someone that has nothing invested in me, and they're saying, dude, this rivals what Vince Flynn put out, or this feels like Clancy, or just whatever the comparison might be. Those normally will kickstart and push those negative feelings out. I know I can do it. But then I have authors like Daniel Silva. I haven't read a Daniel Silva book in many years. And the reason why I haven't, because I was reading him while I was writing early on in my career, is I felt very inadequate with the English language compared to how he put stuff together.
Yeah, he like weaponizes it in a way that's like, holy shit, like this is cutting. It's like David Mamet style writing.
He's I think for my opinion, and again, opinions are like buttholes. Everybody has them and they stink. Okay, that's what an opinion is. Most of them stink, and I'm sure there's some that don't.
Yeah,
But they stink.
at least 50% of them.
At least 50%. But he to me is the purest writer of this gen. He's a little older than me. I think he's in his 60s. So of the generation-ish that I'm in, I think he's the most pure writer where he can make Gabriel Alon do something and the way he words it, you're just like, oh, this is so cool. Which is a great thing. I'm not there. I don't know if I'll ever be there, but that's okay because I'm going to be the best version of Eric Bishop that I can be. So the comparison game can be awfully, awfully dangerous, and I try my best not to play it. So
It's when you talk about like your friends critiquing your reviews, like you'll send me copies of your books like as the editing like what do they call the art copy type
during
stuff.
the advanced copies,
Yeah,
yes,
and so I'll read that stuff. And like as a friend, it's always tough to like do that because I don't how do I say this? It's tough for me to like critique a friend if I don't like something because it's like who am I to judge?
right,
But the influx of that, you always send me like three or four versions of a cover of a book. Uh,
yep,
and so you'd be like, hey, what do you think? And I can visually look at a cover because oddly enough, I judge books by their covers because I think there is something to that that sells the book.
there is. I agree.
Um, and now I've seen some great covers and read the books because it had like a cool werewolf, or like some cool like demon
Right.
slayer on there, and the book was terrible. But to the point, I can look at that cover and be why are the binoculars facing on those three guys there? Like, why is this color here? Could the font or this quote be somewhere else? And like you and I could talk with you about this stuff because I feel like you have a trust in me to like say what
Sure.
I perceive it as, and like I love when you do that because I'm like I look at it, I'll look at it quickly, and be like, this is what I think. I'll say
Right.
it to you, then you'll say the influx of that, or hey, this is what Ava thought, or this is what someone else thought, and I'll
Right.
step back and go, well, shit, now I get what they're saying.
Yeah.
So
No.
it's a cool way to like take criticism, not even criticism, take thoughts and what people think, ideas, and kind of mold it because ultimately it's your thing.
Right.
But you have to have the right people in your circle to kind of trust you, that you trust to look at it in a different way that's not your through your lens.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. So, yeah, that's always it's interesting because I'm the same way where I'll get a not a lot anymore, but still a handful every few months of people like, "Hey, read this for me," or "What do you think about this?" And I try to I try to find a kind thing to say, even if and rarely do I have something that I can't find something kind. But man, I don't want to be negative, which whatever it is. So
It goes to covers. I know last time you were on, we always talk with the referee about your last when you put the body bit out on the that other
on the other,
the other guy. I love that original cover just because it was so
right?
simple and the red of the body man popped on the black
Yep.
background. But that is you kind of went to uh,
Yeah.
your own publishing on Amazon. The colors, like I love like the black and red of the body man, the silhouette, and then with Breach of Trust, it's more black, but the colors in the middle. But with Supreme Justice, there's so much light on the cover where it seems almost like it's such a cool way to like line up your books, and you can actually see them on your shelf now, where it's
Yeah.
such a unique way of using color, yet still maintaining the integrity of like what you're trying to tell.
Right.
Because a lot of books don't have that much color on there, especially with Supreme Justice. Like it looks like a phoenix rising, right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah. It
that's
was
kind
very,
of
very, very intentional.
which oddly enough, with the equilibrium and the truth and justice type atmosphere of the book, it's very much a I don't know, like I just feel like covers you're doing such a cool thing with your covers where not only is a selling point, but it kind of brings like this new eye to your stuff because it's so easy in the thriller space as we know where all the covers are black. It's got the
Right.
red. It's like they all kind of look the same, right?
Yeah.
The
Exactly.
beveled hardcover, the author name, whatever.
Yep.
But it wasn't until Supreme Justice, and then going back to Steve Strad, his Caribbean Harvest, they had
Yeah.
all these crazy jungle colors. Where I think that's where thriller authors can really capitalize on utilizing color and art as a new piece to sell their book.
To sell, yeah, yeah. No, the cover, and ironically, Steve and I have the same cover guy. So I found
Oh
him, and
shit!
I
Yeah,
found him through a mutual friend, a mutual writing friend, who said, "Hey," I said, "I need a good cover person." Like, I think I got someone for you. And then as soon as I saw what could do, I said, "Okay, I've got to share this with other people that are like." And so Steve was one of them. So
yeah. Well, that's what kind of like eventually. And Eric Bass and I have talked about actually doing like a legit podcast studio type thing,
mhm.
where I know this is completely off subject when we're talking about the covers, but like I love the idea of like when you're doing these podcasts and these talks, like we're human, right? And that
Yeah,
just adds to its life happening in real time. And
right.
I like for me, it's like when that stuff happens, I don't obviously we cut that out because it's just dead air. But if we're in the same room, it would just be me making fun of you. So it's like I love the idea of
Did
like
did
the
you
human stuff.
Did you see? There's a clip of it. I saw it in the last month or so. I love Shaq. I love Diesel. So Shaq was on his TNT or TBS, whatever program he was on for thing, and all of a sudden he got up. He's like, "I got pee" or something like that, and he waddles off. And the guys are making fun of him, going, "That ain't a pee walk." And so, of course, he swears he pees. Well, then I think he was on like, and I don't watch any of the late night shows anymore, like none of them. I used to for years. And he was on one of them, and a clip of it was on, and then they're like, "So that pee break?" He's like, "That wasn't a pee. I had to drop the kids off at the pool, basically."
Yeah.
So,
What so it's when does Supreme Justice come out?
um,
Yeah, tell us about that.
July 15th. So hopefully, if we air this on the 17th, it'll already be out. People can go out and get the ebook, the paperback, and the hardcover right now. So it is out.
So, yeah, which is do you when you come out when it comes up to like a release date, do
Mhm.
you ever well, I guess it really isn't bad for indie authors, but are you aware of other authors that release books on that date in your space, in your world?
Um, yes and no. I don't really, for me, I hate to say I'm small time, so it doesn't matter. But me coming out with a book, I think when I came out with Breach of Trust last year, if I recall, it was the same day as Jack Carr came out with whatever his last one was. And I think there was another author. I think there was three of us that all came out on the same day. Maybe Meg Gardner too. Yeah, I think it was Meg as well. So, me and like multiple big name New York Times bestseller authors. Guess what? That doesn't hurt my sales. It might not help my sales either, but it's not like, oh man, Jack's going to get the sale instead of me. No, Jack was already getting the sale. Meg was already getting the sale.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get some tag along sales that were tagged on the same posts, and they're congratulating me on the Breach of Trust coming out, and people, oh, Eric's got one too. I'll buy that one. So yeah, the dates don't like this year for Supreme Justice, July 15th. Terrence McCauley has a book out as well, which I didn't know until maybe a month ago. And actually, him and I are going to do. We'll film it here in the next 2 weeks. I think we're going to film a
Yeah,
combo
smart.
podcast of both of us. Will half of it I'll interview him, half of it he'll interview me, and then we'll both put it out on our networks. But yeah, it's not really, and we've talked about this before. It's not, generally speaking, none of it's a competition. The big name authors, the Brad Thors, the Stephen Kings, the John Grisham, they're going to sell a bazillion books. They've got a loyal following. And if especially those authors that just put out one a year, most people that read those books don't read one book a year. So if they read a Brad Thor, they'll also read whoever it is writing the Vince Flynn books now, and whoever it is writing the Tom Clancy books, multiple people. They'll still go buy those books as well because most readers are voracious readers. They don't read one book a year. So it's not really the competition might kick in with indies, sure. In the sense of there's so many books put out there, but the competition isn't between the authors. The competition is the authors trying to put their books out and grab the audience. So it's not author to author competition. It's just competition of like, can I get the audience's attention? Which is really, it's freaking hard. I mean, there's so many choices for people out there. What sets yourself apart? Which I hope and think the body man concept is what's setting me apart from a lot of authors that are just writing standard political thriller, bad politician, good guy saves the day, standard military or terrorism threat. I tried to do something different, and I did it because I enjoyed the story, but then I also thought this might set me apart from author A, B, C, and D. Maybe I can be author Z down here. That's like, whoa, that's a different concept. Cool. We already have 50 other authors that are writing the hero that's battling the terrorist that gets the girl in the end, and it's the same rinse and repeat story every time. We just tweak how they get blown up or shot or whatever. So,
Yeah. It's a I my next book comes out November 24th, and I
yep,
was gonna do it a week later. But oddly enough, one of my indie poets I follow, he's releasing his book that week. And
same.
so him and
Okay,
I were talking, and he's like, "Hey, do you think you could?" Because this isn't me to toot my horn. My first book has sold a ton of copies, well over 5,000 copies,
amazing. I'm so
and
proud of you.
and if it sold one, I'd be pumped because like, hey, I'm putting myself out there. I don't even
You
care,
did.
like whatever. But the numbers don't lie. And we're talking. He's like, hey, do you think you could do yours a week earlier or later? Because I want to help promote yours without getting in the way of.
Yeah,
So we actually talk, we're like, yeah, we'll do that.
yeah.
But again, to our point where it's like that indie author community is such a cool. Like I've met and talked to so many new people, whether it's the horror writers, the thriller, the poetry,
Mhm.
the military fiction, whatever it is. And so it's like for me, I love that this community like looks out for each other,
Mhm.
and I love that like our fans feel like they're truly getting something they heard. I mean, when you buy a book, not only is there financial investment in it, but the time to read a book when we have all these busy lives, right? And so for you and I, at least, and everyone, I assume everyone you talk to on your side, where they don't take that for granted. And if there is an author or a creative person that takes that person's time and money for granted, that's all like they're going to take that to the grave. And I think that we have to be like as human as we can, which I think is believable for people, right? Because they want to invest in people that they know they care about them.
Yep.
And so yeah,
100%.
it's such a writing is such a weird thing, man. Like it's just like you put yourself out there, and I know you and I have talked about before where people I want to write a book. When the people, how many people we've met that said they want to write a book, they've never wrote a book that should write a book.
The
And,
majority, the
and
majority of people
that
say they're going to do it and they don't.
And like for me, it's like I had some couple of offers that were terrible. I mean, in hindsight, to like be published through them, and I look at their work, I'm like, you like and this is again me tooting my own horn. I'm a bigger draw than your publishing company, so whatever you're gonna do for me, I can do it myself without
Right.
having to listen to some asshole tell me that my cover's stupid or hey, maybe do this. Like, no, I know me better than you know me.
Yeah. No, 100. Well, and you have to bet on yourself. That's the thing. And it's a fine line. And I've talked to a lot of people about this. And I'm not I haven't completely given up this mindset or dream of, yeah, I'd like to be traditionally published. I'd like to go on have the publisher pay for me to do a book tour, 5, 10 city
Of
book tour.
course.
I'd like to show up on the New York Times bestseller list. But as I'm getting older and wiser, as I'm 48 now, I realize the day that happens, the day I get #1 New York Times best-selling author Eric P. Bishop, guess what? It's going to be exciting. And the next morning when I wake up, I'm not going to be like, I'm a New York Times best-selling author. No, I might be like, hey, that was cool. Within a month of that, it's just a title. It's a marketing thing. It's not your kid. It's not your mom, your dad. It's not something precious. It's not something that's going to drive you, I don't think. Maybe getting to there, and I think you very successful person. It's not the destination when you arrive. It's that journey that got you that destination. Because most of the time when you get to that destination, it's kind of hollow. It's kind of like, or it's exciting, but it's a fleeting excitement. It doesn't last that long. So then what you have to do, I need a new destination. Well, that really means what I need to do is go on another journey because that's where the good, the bad, the ugly is going to happen. But that's where you're going to get the most, I think, happiness in life is on
Right.
that journey, not on that destination. The same thing for writing for sure. I was super excited when The Body Man came out. I can still remember I can remember mentally. Can't feel it, but I remember mentally what it felt like to hold that book. You know, I've been holding this one a little bit here now and then the last month since I've had this copy, a month or two now. Feels really exciting to hold the book. Guess what? Doesn't feel any bit like what it felt to hold The Body Man. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Oh, speaking of which. I created some stuff. I gotta send you one too. So I created some.
Hell yeah.
I
Is that
created some
poker
poker.
chip?
Yeah, can't get clear. So they're two-sided. They're only for Supreme Justice, and maybe we'll sell them on the website for like, I don't know, a few dollars or whatever. We'll sell them. So they're pretty inexpensive, but probably cost more to mail them. But yeah, I got a whole box of them and probably do some giveaways, and then everyone that buys a book from me or from you from your website, we'll throw a poker chip in there, and maybe we'll sell them separately as well. But yeah, I got some good. That was a little treat for this book. I haven't done one in a couple books, so time to do a little something for celebrate Supreme Justice.
No, I love it. And this is also the first book that could coincide with a book drop or a book club for Spear Talk. So
Awesome. Awesome.
it's one of those things too where it's like I know we talked about this, but like the creative aspect of selling your book, like doing like little things like that, whether it's challenge coins or
Yeah.
bookmarks or poker chips, it's like that little extra that helps sell this world you're creating. Because I mean, obviously it's confined to the pages of the book, right? But when you get something physical like that, it just makes it seem like there's so much more to this.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
maybe yes, it feels like we're living in a simulation now, but like
We
you
are.
read these books and you escape to these worlds where now it feels like you can feel something physically in your hand that maybe one of these characters touched or used or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I wanted to kind of celebrate uh, Supreme Justice. So a little bit for the listeners, the backstory on it is the third book in the Body Man series. But when I actually started writing it, it actually had a completely different title. So the backstory is when I wrote The Body Man and first started giving it to early readers, the most common comment I got was like, "Man, such a great book. Who's this Merci character?" And the answer is I didn't know who she was. It was a one-off. I needed a hot female assassin who's gonna kill the president, basically. Very one-dimensional character. Well, then I started thinking, okay, why would this hot woman who's really good at killing and in good physical shape, why would she kill people? So go fast forward to going through a fun separation, and I don't write for about a year and a half, and I figured out why she would do what she did and what horrible backstory she had. So for Supreme Justice, it started as Mercy's standalone book, and I'm not exaggerating it. Had to go through court-ordered mediation December 2020. I hadn't written that year or kept anything that I wrote that year during the separation. But the moment I walked out of that lawyer's office, and I was in Spartanburg, South Carolina, moment I walked out, I knew what my future was going to look like. I knew how much I'd have to pay in alimony, child support, when I'd see my kids, what holidays. I kind of had my blueprint of my life going forward for the next 8 years or whatever. I felt renewed. And the first thing I thought of is, I'm going to tell Mercy's story. I started writing that night and I wrote the next night. And I wrote from December all the way until middle of February. I wrote 30 something thousand words of Mercy's story. Um, and then literally I got a request for, or I submitted stuff. I was submitting stuff. I got a interest in the Body Man series. So I kind of slowed down, went back and forth with the publisher for a couple of weeks. And then the day, I think I got my final, and again, not a pro-divorce statement, but the day I got my divorce papers signed and you're officially divorced was like noon on, I don't know, Tuesday, whatever day it was. 3 hours later, the thing I wanted for so long came in my inbox, which was a contract for 3 books the body. So my ex wasn't always super supportive of the writing, especially at the end of the relationship. And here on the day my life was starting over, I was getting the book I finally wanted to get published. So Mercy's story went away completely, and I'm totally focused on getting the Body Man out. So her book actually initially, no, not told anyone this either. Her book initially was called "Put Her Down," was what her, and I wasn't married to the title, but it actually is a line in Supreme Justice. I kept that line that had started that title, but I decided during the course of it, man, that's just not a good title. And then I also, as I went back to that story, I was like, I don't want to start another series. Merci, I was starting writing her book again last year, towards the summer and early fall, and I kept trying to find ways to put the body man in the story. And I think you and I had a conversation about it, talked to a couple of different authors about it. It's like, why not just make Merci the standout in book three? But what's happening in book three of the series is kind of like an interlude between book two and four. So while Breach of
Yeah.
Trust ends and there's a list of names on a dead body, um, the next book really is Downfall, book four. But in the meantime, Merci is involved in this process, and she's got her own shit going on in Washington, and you have her story going on. So while her story's going on, the body man's trying to figure out what's going on with these listed names. And so at the end of Supreme Justice, I have an author's note for everyone listening that says, hey, you're probably gonna have questions. You're probably gonna want to send me nasty emails or messages saying, yo, 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 you hinted to a lot of stuff. What's going on? Well, what's going on is Downfall. It'll be out summer of 2026. All your questions will be answered. I'm teasing you for a little bit, but this was Mercy's story and it had to come out now. And she's part of the Body Man universe, the Body Man series.
So it's like ballerina in between John Wick 3 and 4.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And if Anna wants to call me, hey, I'm free. I'm available. I think you might be with Tom Cruise now, so maybe you're not going to want to go with a low-level indie
Yeah.
author, but I'm available.
As long as she brings her flamethrower, I'm all for
That
it.
dude, I was surprised the movie didn't do as well. I didn't think it was going to do John Wick numbers necessarily, but I thought it would do. I
It's
Ama
crush it's crushing right now on digital because
on digital.
I think people are realizing that it was happening in between 3 and 4 and not
Yeah.
necessarily like a prequel to John Wick.
Not a pre right. Ama Adair saw it, and I messaged her. She posted it, and we had already gone back and forth. And so I asked her, "Tell me what you think." And so when she got back that night, she messaged me, and I'm like, "Okay, I gotta go see this."
Yeah,
So it took
dude,
me about a week and a half before I went and
it's
got
one of my
saw it.
favorite so far. One of my favorite movies this year. Just
Yeah,
pure action, great kills. The other thing
the
you're also
flamethrowers and the grenades were pretty wild. I
oh
will
that
say, I was like, "Damn,
the
damn,
grenade, the table scene with the grenade when she flips the table. Yeah, awesome.
awesome, very well
Um,
done."
the other stuff, I know we have to wrap this up soon, but like in terms of like your other stuff you're writing, you do the comic book stuff with Machete Comics, that
Yep,
you and I are doing with the Bottled Secrets,
yep,
which is awesome. And so it's cool seeing you like kind of outreach into that world as well. Because obviously writing a comic book story or a short story is a lot different
hmm
than a thriller book you're writing. But
right,
with the comic books, you're also creating words and entrusting the artist, Chris Machete and Lonnie,
sure,
to portray what you're writing. It's like it's been wild seeing. Like I never could have read like Bottled Secrets and visualized it the way that it looked like it does now because it reminds me of like one of those segments of like Creep Show, which ultimately is
Yeah.
what that comic book's about, different
Right.
horror stories. But it was such a cool like psychological type thing to see visually done,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's wild, man.
Yeah. So I think for me, I know you've got what, 7 parts coming out in this thing. So there's one. So part two for me will be out, I think, in August.
Yes,
Which is this is going to be his sixth one.
fifth.
Fifth. Okay, so fifth. Okay, so it's six. Okay, so it's 6 part. Okay, and then the next one will be. So I have given him 3 stories. So this will be the second part coming out in August, and then the third one, the final one, will come out later. So yeah, no, awesome. Yeah, just creatively, the novels bring me a lot of happiness and joy, but the concept of writing is what it comes down to. So it's bigger than just writing a series. I just enjoy the process of challenge, and it was a challenge to write a horror thing. That's a challenge for me because I don't read horror very much. I don't watch horror movies. I know you're a aficionado on horror movies. I haven't watched them in years, and I just don't have. I don't really have the desire to pick them back up either. So when it got approached, when I got approached about doing it, I'm like, man, I don't know how to do that. And then my brain was like, well, then you have to do it. You have to figure out how to do it because you need to push yourself. Stop writing just an assassin and a political and a politician and the badass Secret Service agent and go freaky. Where can your mind possibly go? And I think I found where my mind goes, especially part three. When people get to part three, be like, really, that's what's going on? I'm like, yeah, I think that's kind of like a badass thing to do. So,
Yeah,
and then we also, I mean, the podcast is already launched, on my network. So we've got another project going on with a bunch of other writers.
yeah.
Uh,
So that will. I think we're gonna be able to start doing full promo of that middle of August.
okay.
The last author is working with the editor now just to kind of get their story kind of together.
Yeah.
Because it's and he'll obviously eventually talk about it, but it's one of those things where he's doing a prequel, writing a prequel of sorts of a story to a much bigger thing he's actually working on, and so it's doing it in a way uh, that builds the world but fits what we're trying to do.
That's what we're trying to
But
do.
yeah, it's very much so we're releasing a horror anthology this year with 13 writers,
Hmm.
uh, two of which
Lucky number 13.
were you just talked to, Christopher Hawkins and Michael Pico, who are oddly enough the only horror writers, established horror writers in this thing.
The only true ones.
Yeah, so this will be a very macabre, very dark, violent, psychological horror anthology like Creepshow. But
Yeah.
yeah, just some wild stuff. And so yeah, that we will start promo that up coming in August, and then get that out around Halloween time. And then, but yeah, it's just fun, man. It's always fun talking to you,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to writing and life. And yeah, I look forward to doing this again when the fourth book comes out in the Bunny Man series, Downfall.
Downfall will be out summer. I'm gonna try to squeeze in another Omega Group book early part of the year. I'm pilfering something I wrote years ago, which is good and bad. The good is that it's a really good story. The bad is I wasn't as good of a writer back then, so it's gonna take me a couple months this fall to kind of clean it up. But it's gonna be the backstory for Troy Evans. So my Troy Evans character. Um, uh, wasn't always on the path he's on now with the Omega Group. So this kind of goes back and says what shifted um, his his vision in life, and that was 9/11, honestly. So there's something big that happens with 9/11 in New York that alters his life. So yeah. So thank you. Yeah, thanks for coming on. I did want to give credit to this thing because I actually had a message about it recently. So anyone that reads Supreme Justice, the last chapter of the book is 10% made up, 90% real. And so one of the things that came through that was I actually met with one of my readers in Cork, Ireland. We met at a bar. I had my first Murphy's Irish Stout, and he gave me this on my trip there. And then I went on to the Blarney Castle,
It's awesome.
and so one of those things that I never saw coming in writing of you don't know who you're going to meet through the process, and people that just read your book and then like, hey man, if you're going to be in my town in another country, reach out and come hang out with me. Um, Super amazing. I might even go do a book signing in September there just because of that. I might go to Ireland for 4 days and just go there and just even if I sign two books, it would be worth it. But yeah, that's the beauty of this. Meeting you, meeting all the other people that door's opened up. Um, and on this note, life's a gift, people. You get to choose how you receive that gift. Yes, bad things happen to all of us. But how we overcome those things and what we do next really is kind of a blessing, and also it's a challenge to how you're going to live your life. So, live it well.
Love it. Well, thank you, sir. And once again, Supreme Justice comes out July 15th.
July 15th.
Awesome. Grab it,
Thank you.
people.